And now let us come down to what is unique about Kerala rivers. But let me tell you, each river system is unique, and each landscape has got its own uniqueness of the river systems that it beholds. As I told earlier, all the rivers in Kerala originate from the Western Ghats, either deeper in the Western Ghats when they become interstate, like the present controversy of the Mullaperiyar going on because interstate and Periyar and Chalakudi, Bharatapuzha and the Chaliyar, Valapattanam, all these are interstate rivers. But all of them originate because the Western Ghats is also shared by Kerala and Tamil Nadu when you come down to the south. But let me tell you, Western Ghats is among the 8 hotspots among the 34 global hotspots. And another important aspect about the Kerala rivers is that they are all very short, and the aerial distance as the crow flies would be just 60 to 70 kilometers. But when they wind down like a snake, the longest river is just the Periyar, which is 244 kilometers. So, but as aerial distance, they are just 60 kilometers. So they are very short, torrential, monsoon-fed rivers. And let me tell you, they have a very steep gradient from east to west. So this sentence itself shows how fragile they are. And so what has to be preserved in the long term if those rivers have to maintain their flow? That's very important aspect. So the biodiversity and the forest and the gradient, all these decide how living the river can be. And another important aspect is the southern Western Ghats rivers also hold a very high fish diversity and very high endemism. Because these are all estimates based on IUCN, which IUCN has done extensive studies on the fish diversity of the Western Ghats rivers, when they found that the highest fish diversity and at least 40% of these fishes enter into our food system. And let me tell you, one of the important threats in the Western Ghats rivers is that our inland fish diversity is dying down. Even a person living 1,500 meters above the sea level would be having a fish from the sea. And where once upon a time they used to have good hill stream fishes like masir, but which is all dying out. And another thing is, most of our rivers in Kerala, they drain into wetlands and backwaters. You must have heard about the Vembanad and the Cole, which are the Ramsar sites. Why they are Ramsar sites? Because all these rivers bring their rich nutrients and sediments down from the Western Ghats into these wetlands. So that's why they are the best source of food, nutrition for the people, and the best place where paddy farming has been thriving. You have the Kutanad rice bowl, which is the best paddy farming area in the entire state. So I'll come back again that the well-being of all these rivers is inextricably linked to the well-being of the Western Ghats. Just to show you, in the downstream area, just a very small early morning chanda, as it is called, an early morning fish market, where this is for the early morning fish catch from the downstream area of the river. Let me tell you, in the Kerala Western Ghats river, at every altitudinal range, you have a different diversity of fishes. Those fishes that you find in the plains or where the river is in the downstream area, where it's reaching the coast of the delta, will be different from those fishes you find in the hill streams, where the river originates. And just now coming down to the Kerala Western Ghats rivers at a glance, as we all know, 44 very small river basins, where 41 are west flowing and 3 are east flowing. Unlike the Kaveri or the Narmada or the Brahmaputra or Ganges, we have no major rivers. We have only 4 medium, and rest of them are streams, because they cannot be even classified as rivers. They are just streams. And there are the 3 east flowing ones are the Kabini, Pambar and the Bhavani, which are ultimately the tributaries of Kaveri. As I said earlier, it is the total catchment of all these rivers is just about 43,000 square kilometer, which is even less than half of Kaveri. And but this 43,000 square kilometer catchments, because the entire area of Kerala is just 38,000 plus square kilometer. So you can imagine, but this is the mainstay of more than 30 million people living in this small strip of land. And also we have just 11 rivers which are more than 100 kilometers in length. Rest of all the rivers are very small. There are some rivers which originate from the laterite hills of the northern Kerala in Kannur, Kasaragod districts, which are just 31 kilometers. They originate from the spur hills of the Western Ghats. And 10 rivers are interstate, which have their origin in Tamil Nadu. And the total annual utilizable yield of this is just some data, very basic data. Annual utilizable yield of all these rivers together is 49,000 plus million cubic meters.
You can come to the front. You don't have to sit in the back row.
Yeah. And I would just take a glance of the 5 important rivers. And among these, I would be just talking about 3, that is the Periyar, Chalakudi and the Bharatapuzha, for obvious reasons. This is just an idea of the small catchments that we have here. See, the longest river in Kerala is just 244 kilometers, with a small catchment of 5,398 square kilometers. It originates in the Sivagiri Hills in the Western Ghats. Of course, it has some 8 tributaries, but it is considered to be one of the rivers which used to bring the maximum amount of water to the backwaters and to the sea. It is used to be. And Bharatapuzha, which is considered as a dead river, and I'll come to that, and which originates from the Animalais. Now, if you take the entire Western Ghats, the most important biodiversity-rich region in the Western Ghats is considered to the Animalais and the Agastyamalai. Because Animalais, of course, which has the Anamudi, the highest peak in the Western Ghats, and 2 rivers, that is the Bharatapuzha and Chalakudi, completely originate from the Animalais. Then you have the Pamba, which is very famous all over India for the Shabarimala pilgrimage, and the Chaliyar. Of course, once upon a time in the 1960s, Chaliyar was discussed a lot because of the pollution by Maur grazim rayons, but now it's closed. Now Chaliyar is a little bit reviving. It is trying to come back because the factory has been closed, and there is no other major pollution in that river except for the sewage from the townships and the small cities like the Calicut Corporation, and Chalakudi, of course, also from the Animalais. This is the Chalakudi river is something which we have been working for the last 10 years. When we look at, when you start working in a river, you understand that knowing a river is even difficult for the entire lifetime. You go on knowing more about it, the more you try to know more about it. Now, because our rivers are very small, I have grouped the most important 6 major human interventions which have been contributing to dying rivers, of course, in different degrees in the entire Western Ghats rivers. So the first prime important is that the deforestation of the catchments, as I was saying earlier, because the Western Ghats, which is indispensable for these rivers to flow, and has been the first, to be degraded. So the deforestation of the catchments, and we have a very long history of about 200 years of history of degradation or deforestation of the catchment of the Western Ghats rivers, starting from the British, and when they opened up large areas in the Western Ghats. Now this is not only applicable to Kerala, also to Tamil Nadu, also to Karnataka, where large catchment was opened up for plantations of tea, coffee, and first coffee, then tea, and then cardamom. Because almost if you take Periyar River, almost a huge catchment, about 434 square kilometers of the Periyar catchment comes under the biggest tea planter in the country, that is the Kannandevan Hills, the KDHP as it is called. We all drink Tata tea. That is all from this entire, the catchment of the Periyar, but which has led to the dying up of the small streams which originate in these high altitude areas and which feed the main Periyar. And the other important major intervention that's contributed to dying rivers is the large number of, so you would imagine such a small state, 38,000 square kilometers, but we have 60 dams in such a small state with both irrigation plus hydroelectric projects, and many other smaller, larger dams are under construction. So within 40 square kilometer area, if you take an aerial distance, you may have minimum 10 dams or 20 dams. In the Periyar, if you take the 3 important catchments, that is the Bharatapuzha, Chalakudi and Periyar, which are close together, if you take an aerial view, go in a helicopter, in 40 square kilometer, you will find 20 dams. So that is how it is. And then this is in the upstream areas, and you come down to the downstream areas of the rivers, sand mining is the biggest important culprit which has been destroying the rivers, destroying the water table, the groundwater table, and because in Bharatapuzha, you had actually 20 to 30 meters deposits of sand long back. And within the last 20 years, we have mined it, and now the river looks like, dugout ponds with all the scrubs growing inside. You can't differentiate the river and the land now. That's how it has become. The level of the river has gone down so much. And in rivers like Chalakudi, Pampa, and Periyar, in certain areas, the river bed is lower than the sea level. This I'm talking based on data that is generated by the Center for Earth Science Studies, which is based in Trivandrum. When they carried out the mapping of the river bed, in many of the stretches, because of sand mining, the river bed is below the sea level in many of the rivers. It also has to do with the steep gradient of the Kerala rivers, because unless they have at least a considerable gradient or a flat area to flow, they will quickly go down to the sea. So now in Kerala, what you find is when the southwest monsoons arrive, within 2 days all the rivers get flooded, and all the water flows down to it doesn't flow, it rushes to the sea, because there is no forest upstream, there is no sand downstream to hold on the water. And incorrect land use, because when you come down to small catchments, it is very important how you plan the land use within the catchment. We have been having if you look at it more deeply, you can find that we have indiscriminate wetland and paddy land reclamation in Kerala, and the demolition of hills, which is taking place at a rapid pace for urbanization and infrastructure development, which has contributed, because in our small catchments, these were the natural water bodies which used to conserve the water that was left by the torrential southwest monsoons. And these used to feed the river, and they used to contribute to the summer flows. But now, because we have all the land is reclaimed, almost all the paddy lands and wetlands are now in islands. And all these connections, all these connectivities between the waterways and the river has been lost. So these ecological connections have been lost. And this has also because then now and not only that, the intake of water, the extraction of water is more than recharge, because these were the ones which used to recharge water into the rivers. So now there is a big imbalance here, and this is also leading to shortage of water in summer. Pollution, of course, not as compared to Tamil Nadu, but the degree of pollution is there, because there are a lot of townships which depend on these rivers. As I told you earlier, a small river like Chalakudi has about 10 lakh people depending on it. A very small river like Chalakudi, which is just having 30 panchayats inside it. Then encroachments into river, because now we are always talking about room for rivers. Because Professor Ramaswamy Iyer always says, are we leaving room for our rivers to flow? Because encroachment, Yamuna, I need not talk to you about Yamuna, you are very well aware. Every river we have encroachments, which are most of them illegal, by which, there is no room for the river to flow when it is in flood or when it carries more water during the monsoons. So I'm just going through some of the important pictures to just to explain how this is happening. Now, let me tell you, I'm not showing a dam, because a dam is something which everybody knows how a dam looks like. I don't think anybody knows how a dam doesn't look like.